This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. Ton of questions to get into. We're going to start with a question from Jeffrey, but before, if you want to ask questions, make sure you subscribe, notified, so when I post on the community page asking for the questions, you can drop them there. Or if you follow me on Blue Sky, you can ask questions there as well. Now let's jump into it. Jeffrey says, what do you want to see out of Jamari Thrash when he gets a chance to play? One big if he gets a chance to play. Right now, the Browns want to evaluate Elijah Moore, right? Like, so they're going to give him a ton of playing time, and they want to see, like, is he worth a low-level sub $10 to $12 million extension to stay on as a wide receiver, to stay on as a piece for this team, because he's relatively young. He's also going to be pretty cheap. So I think they want to evaluate him there first. Jamari Thrash is in his first year. He's a 5th-round pick. I think the time to evaluate him will probably be next year more than anything. But this year, I don't think you're going to see a ton of Jamari Thrash, or at least enough of Jamari Thrash to really have any expectations built out of him. And I don't want to do that to him, right? Like, one of the things I've realized is, if I can like a young player, right? And I like Jamari Thrash. I like him. He's a 5th-round pick. But sometimes me or other people saying that they like him turns into hype that's almost impossible for somebody to live up to in the situation they're in out the box. Like, if I go on here and talk about how much I expect from Jamari Thrash when he's a 5th-round pick, it's going to put some unfair expectations on him, because ultimately he's a rookie. He's a 5th-round pick. The expectations are that he just stay on the team in year one. Year two, hopefully he can produce, but you're not really looking at him to, like, get 500 yards or something like that. Like, those are expectations you would have for, like, a Cedric Tillman, not really a 5th-round rookie. Now, if he breaks those expectations, if he puts himself in a class of player where he's clearly capable of having, like, extended expectations placed upon him, then we can start having that conversation. But right now, he's not at the time of his development where I think I feel comfortable placing expectations on him. I think it's way too early. Send says this: the Browns need another wide receiver. I think they need a veteran. Which veteran do you see coming to the Browns? This is something, interestingly enough, that Cam Justice brought up when I had her on, and that video will be coming out sometime either this week or next week. But we were talking about how the wide receiver room doesn't have any veterans now that Amari Cooper's gone. So I do think that they're going to need a veteran. It's going to be interesting to see who they go after, right? Is it going to be somebody who's like a young veteran, like a Mike Williams? Are they going to go with somebody who might be a little bit over the hill but still could provide a lot of mentorship because they were once a high-level player? But I think they're definitely going to have to go out there and get a veteran, because they just don't have any older players in that wide receiver room right now. And I think that's an important thing when it comes to development. So thank you for the question. Next question comes from the Big Dot, who says, with all the draft picks we've acquired from Buffalo and Detroit, would you rather us go out there and move all of them for a bigger name prospect, or keep the picks and take depth pieces and hope they turn into starting caliber players like Martin Emerson? I think there's a number of things that you could do with all those picks that they got, right? They got a 5th-round pick and they got a 3rd-round pick. There's a number of things. You could turn that 5th-round pick into a veteran wide receiver, like we just mentioned, from a different team. You could turn that 3rd-round pick into a player, a veteran player. You could turn that 3rd-round pick into a package to move up in the 1st round if you fall in love with the quarterback. You could do a lot of things. I think that's what getting those extra picks enables. I don't know if it enables a specific draft strategy, but it just enables you to have more draft strategies, more options to get the guys that you want. Whether that be by sitting and waiting, whether that be by trading back, whether that be trading up, or getting a veteran player. I think it gives you all of those options, and that's why they said, hey, these two guys who aren't going to be on the team after this year, it's worth it to shop them for some draft picks given where the team's record is right now. Wolf says, I honestly wonder if the type of QB who could fit in Kevin's system or something similar to CJ Stroud, a type of pocket passer with decent mobility, as he did come from Ohio State. So his type is being produced in college. Do you think that that's a good type that could fit Kevin? I think CJ Stroud could fit any offense you put him in. He's an excellent quarterback, right? When I say that they're not producing the type of players that Kevin's offense is used to having, I mean something very specific in that, and I should probably clarify. I mean that if you want to have somebody plug and play into that offense, there's not a lot of options coming out of college, right? There's a lot of offenses you can run in the NFL that are pretty much plug and play for a lot of guys coming out of here. But the Browns were an offense where there's going to be a transition no matter who you draft. The question is, how do you project what guys have the skill sets to be able to do what you project them to do? Doesn't mean that you change your offense just to be more comfortable to a rookie, even though that might be something they consider, right? Like they might decide to move off of Ken Dorsey, not because he's a bad offensive coordinator. We still got to see what he does for the rest of the season as the play caller, but maybe because they think, hey, his passing concepts are a bit more complicated than what we want for a rookie quarterback. So we're going to move off of somebody and move off of him and move to somebody who offers a little bit more of a simplified ideology with the quarterback, right? Like that might just be how they roll with it. I don't think it's anything too specific about like if this quarterback can run or not. I think it has to do with comfort in the pocket. Like when you watch this quarterback, are they comfortable standing in the pocket and dealing? That's a skill set that you're going to have. Are they comfortable layering the ball over linebackers, right? There's two quarterbacks in college football I watch right now that do that on a consistent basis. That's Shedeur Sanders and it's Curtis Warwick in Indiana, right? When you watch them, they're consistently staying in. Well, Shedeur doesn't stay in the pocket as much, but that has something to do with the offensive line. I think he also has some bad habits being built too because of the poor quality of play on that offensive line. But there are a lot of moments where Shedeur stands in that middle of that pocket and deals and throws and layers balls over linebackers and does that. There are times where Curtis Warwick does that, right? He does it pretty well. He's 24 playing against college-aged kids who are usually about 2 years younger than him, but he does that very well. There are quarterbacks who I don't see them doing that, but that doesn't guarantee that they can't do it, right? Like Cam Ward, he likes to throw on the line, not the lines. He likes to throw on the edges of the field. He doesn't like to layer balls over the middle of the field. Is that because he can't do it or because he's not asked to do it? Jalen Milroe, right? He doesn't do that a ton. Is that because he can't do it or because he's not asked to do that? I would love to see what Jalen Milroe looks like under center, right? Like I think there's a lot of different things that you want to see from Jalen Milroe before you feel comfortable taking him with a first round pick. And then you have, your Cade Klubniks of the world where I haven't watched enough Cade Klubnik to know exactly where I would land on that, or your Carson Becks, right? So I think that's the thing, right? Comfort, standing in the pocket and dealing, being on time, right? I think that's a big thing. Are you comfortable being on time or do you have to be on your own time? Both of those can work, but obviously in the Kevin Stefanski system, you got to be on time. Like a lot of these routes kind of depend on you throwing with anticipation. It's another thing. Can the quarterback throw with anticipation? There's a lot of different skill sets that you have to look for that might not be exactly how a player plays in college, but might be something that they're capable of. That's why I think, yes, the rest of the college season is going to be important for the Browns quarterback evaluation, but honestly, even more important than that is going to be like the Senior Bowl stuff that you're going to see, where these guys get to be put in different offenses and do different things and asked to get out their comfort zone a little bit. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what exactly you could do here. Booth says, who on the coaching staff do you think will be retained and make it to year 2? I think most of the coaching staff is going to be retained, if I'm being honest with you. I think maybe Bubba Ventrone gets asked to leave. I think everybody on the defense is going to be safe. Maybe there's some guys who are holdovers from the last staff, right, of offensive coordinator that might be moved, right? The Browns wide receiver coach might get moved. I think that would be a move that's been a long time coming, to be honest with you. But I don't think that they're going to make a giant, like, even if they got rid of Ken Dorsey, right? I think they just kind of elevate some of the guys that they already have on staff instead of like clearing out and getting rid of a ton of coaches. I think if they make any moves, it'll be pretty isolated what moves they make. So special teams, maybe a wide receiver coach, maybe Ken Dorsey, but even if you'd fire him, you just elevate, somebody in the staff and let Kevin kind of control the offensive process again. I don't think it's going to be a thing where you bring in, like, you fire Ken Dorsey and then you bring in another big name offensive coordinator. Do you think if Kirk and the Falcons make a good playoff run that Penix will be a trade option? No, the Browns will not be able to trade for Michael Penix because that's who the Falcons think is their franchise quarterback coming up. But the Browns could trade for Kirk Cousins. Now, if you're wondering how that would work, if the Browns can afford it, I did a video with Jack Duffin talking about the Browns salary cap situation and what is the truth about it, what situation that they're actually in. And he seems to have a good idea, and he's really good at this stuff. Jack's cap analysis has been correct for every year that he's done it. So he seems to think that the Browns could do something like bring in Kirk Cousins if they really wanted to. The next question comes from Nathan, says, would Justin Fields be a good option for the Browns next year? I don't think it's one you ignore. He could potentially be a bridge for the next couple of years. I honestly, here's how my whole replacing the quarterback philosophy is going right now. It could change. I still haven't been able to look at all 22 for college players yet. But right now, when I look at 2025 and I look at 2026, I think I prefer to take a quarterback in 2025. I think you would want to take a quarterback in 2025 for a couple reasons. One, Arch Manning aside, I don't know who else is in that 2026 class that's really appealing, right? Like, the only guys who are appealing in that class could also be in this class. You're talking about like Drew Allure or maybe Jalen Milroe stays at Alabama for another year. Like, I don't find any of the options that are going to be available outside of Arch Manning. And again, we know very little about Arch Manning as a quarterback prospect other than his last name. It could be the case that Arch Manning starts at Texas next year and stinks. And like, do you take that guy number 1 overall just because his last name's Manning? I don't know. He's a good athlete, has a lot of tools, but you basically be drafting a raw 5-star out of high school. Like, it wouldn't make a ton of sense. Like, this is not like Andrew Luck in 2012 level guarantee hit there that the name Manning makes you think it might be. That being said, I wouldn't be shocked if a dude with the last name of Manning ends up being a good quarterback. But that's one guy in that class. There's not a lot else out there. And if Arch Manning is any levels of decent at Texas next year, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. As down in the dumps as Browns fans are about the Browns' future, I think they're a little bit lower than they should be. I don't think the Browns are going to be in competition for the number 1 overall pick next year. I think they will be, at worst, a decent team next year. So I think Arch Manning, not really an option. I think this is the year where you go out and get a quarterback. And if you can't get that quarterback this year or next year, I think 2027 is a good year to go get a quarterback. But if you get a quarterback in 2025, you could try him out for 2 seasons. And then by the time 2027 comes around, you can switch to somebody else. And that class looks a lot better than any of these two classes. But I do think there's going to be a good quarterback in this year's draft class. I don't know if that's going to be the case in 2026 outside of maybe Arch Manning. But again, that last name is doing a ton of work there for Arch as far as his college career goes so far. We'll see what he looks like next season. So that's where I'm looking at this year's draft. Like, I think if you love a quarterback in this year's draft, I think it's fully justified to take one. Rat says, if the Browns get a top 10 pick, do you think they will go best player available or need? Are the Browns in a position to trade up and get another first round pick? I mean, if they really wanted to, they could, right? I don't know if that would be a great idea. This is not a draft where I would advise that. But yeah, if the Browns get a top 10 pick, they will most certainly take the best player available, and it will likely, in my opinion, be an offensive player. Maybe they get like a corner, they surprise us, or an edge rusher, but we'll see. We'll have those conversations when the draft is a lot closer. But yeah, man, I think that they'll go best player available. I think if you're a team that doesn't expect to be in the top 10, you got to take your swings when you're in there. The few years you are. Doctor says, what non-QB prospects should the Browns keep an eye on? The running back out of Boise State, I think he's going to be really good. Ashton Jeanty. Obviously, Travis Hunter, best playmaker in college football. Maybe you want to look at a couple of corners. Maybe you want to look at a couple of edge rushers. I think those two, though, Jeanty and Travis Hunter are probably the two most exciting ones. Maybe Tetora McMillan is somebody you want to keep an eye on because he's probably going to be the number one receiver in this year's draft class. I find Travis Hunter to be interesting because I do think he'll be a playmaker as a wide receiver in the NFL level. I just think he's going to play corner. And they don't let you play two positions in the NFL just for health and safety reasons, right? Or at least most teams won't really do it. But boy, I would be tempted to just give him like 7 snaps a game at wide receiver. Like, why not? But anyways, I think those are the main two you need to watch here. Jared says, do you think there is a world where Barry is let go, but Stefanski says someone is going to be offered up as a scapegoat? I think if somebody does go of the major players on the Cleveland Browns, it's likely Andrew Barry. I don't think Andrew Barry's going to get fired, though. I don't think that is where the Browns are leaning. I think they want to keep this core together. And if they were thinking about firing Andrew Barry, I think the Browns probably would have been more aggressive at the trade deadline. Because if you decided you're going to get rid of Andrew Barry and blow this whole thing up, no, you're not going to trade Myles Garrett, but you are going to seriously consider getting rid of David Njoku and Denzel Ward and all these guys. And it doesn't seem like there was a lot of smoke there for those guys. It seems like people were calling, wondering if that's going to be the case. And the Browns were like, nah, that's not what we're doing. So I don't think anybody of the major players here, Stefanski, Barry, are going to get fired. Not this year, at least. Now the year after, they stink again next year. Yeah, they could get fired easily. I mean, they might get fired in the middle of the year, but this year I think Barry and Stefanski are safe. I think if somebody ends up getting fired, it's probably like Dorsey or like Bubba Ventrone. Rev Recluse says, is DTR really in the plans of the Browns going forward? No, I don't think so. I get the support that DTR has because it is true. He has not been put in the best situations to succeed. And I think that's fair. And if you want to see what he can do in a more fair situation, I don't blame you for wanting that. The only thing that worries me about DTR is it seems like when things go bad for him, he doesn't have a good way of stopping and resetting, right? Like he goes downhill. Like if he throws one interception, it's going to trigger a bunch of other bad decisions. That's my thing with him, right? The deep ball stuff, maybe that could be fixed, maybe that can't. He's a great athlete, right? Like, he's a spectacular athlete. When he was in the Pac-12 with Jaden Daniels at the time, he was the better athlete. Like, he's a great athlete. He has a lot of tools that he could put to use. But that's the thing that I think the Browns are worried about, and me personally, I'm worried about is like, hey, does he have the mental fortitude? Not saying he's weak or anything like that, but in the NFL to play quarterback, you got to be able to almost throw an interception, wipe that off, and get down the field and start throwing deep again. DTR seems to be afraid to make mistakes. Maybe that's Chip Kelly's fault. If you know anything about how Chip Kelly coaches these kids, he's a bit hard on them. So I don't know. But that's the thing I'm most concerned about with DTR is like, yeah, man, when it goes downhill, it really goes downhill with him. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.